And if it's under a certain amount, they'll just be like, go somewhere else.
Yeah.
You don't get our contact information.
Right. Mm-hmm. DMS here with us because Eric's decided to take a vacation. So we're going to talk about who knows what. What are
I
we
brought
talking
a subject with me.
Oh,
Yeah.
Convenient.
So it's no secret that HiFi is a pretty tight-knit community. I feel like everybody knows one another. All the companies know one another. Another guy I know who makes headphones, right? He works with dynamic drivers and all that stuff. He buys them from overseas because, well, where else do you buy dynamic drivers from, okay? Being a HiFi, he's not super high volume, so he's kind of at the mercy of what they have available, what they're already making. So he's not buying like 20,000 units at a time or something. And because of that, every time this guy's been getting in drivers for like research and development, they're always different. He can never get them consistent. They'll send him a batch and be like, oh, it's the same thing as before. But they'll have changed like some of the porting on it, or changed the plastic, or whatever. It sounds totally different. And he's worried, well, when I get in production, I have to deal with the same thing. Which kind of, my understanding is part of why you guys make everything in-house in America is because you don't have to deal with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we started with getting drivers from China, dynamic. We started with dynamic drivers saying, let's see what we could do with this.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty bad.
Yeah, right.
It was like, you can't fix this. It just sounds bad. So then we went into a Heil design. We started to make our own.
Mm-hmm.
So
actually, no. We stopped making anything. We're like, Then there was like a 2-year gap, and then we picked it back up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean the first?
First.
Yeah. That goes way back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that takes a while.
Yeah.
It takes like a long time.
Yeah.
But
the gap isn't totally true, though, when you think about it, because we were looking for materials to make our own.
Yeah, we weren't actively making anything.
No, we weren't actively making anything.
To figure out
we were playing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't working out.
No.
It's just so hard, though, I imagine, like, in general, now that could apply to any part at all, but it makes me realize, like, man, HiFi as a whole, because it's such a niche market, you have to be able to get every single little piece consistently.
Well,
because
that is
you're
the
not
problem,
manufacturing bajillions of them custom.
Because even if you're not just buying done components,
right?
Like, all the things that make the components are a problem too. So we had problems with
the magnets.
adhesives, magnets,
adhesives,
films, all kinds of stuff that's inconsistent. So same problem, really.
Right.
It's not just having the parts, being able to produce the parts, or even having the parts, but it's also the procedures involved with assembling the parts to make a driver. And it's a process that has to be created, and it's unique to your particular driver. It's not, I make this driver 1 million of them, so now sure we can make that one. Well, not really. I mean, you've got to. Everything changes as soon as the components change. Everything changes around. And I'm not saying that there's not, things that are common. Like if you build dynamic drivers for a living, a lot of what, even though you change the driver design, a lot of it is similar, but you're changing a lot of things. You're going to have new jigs. You're going to have new this. The process has to be created. And that's the problem. You never know what you run into, and that's what when China or anywhere overseas is making a driver, especially during prototyping, there's no process.
Right.
They're only making a few for some company to try. So it's going to be inconsistent, and the problem is you don't know. At one point, will it be consistent if production does start, if at all?
And little things make such a huge difference.
Right, in our world.
One of the samples he got in, the batch before that looked pretty much the exact same, with the difference that the plastic was just a different color on part of the driver. The new ones get in, well, everything looks the same. It's all the same materials, but the plastic is a different color. Totally different. Completely sound different, completely measured different, all kinds, just because this change in the plastic, and that's it.
Of course, don't confuse anyone. It wasn't the color that changed it. It was a different plastic.
Well, it's like a different density and rigidity.
They just happened to be injecting that plastic that day.
Yeah, same mold.
Right?
It's the same problem that we have. I mean, they have probably supply problems, and they get different materials in, and they're just like, it'll work, right? But in the end result, it's different.
Yeah, they don't think anything of it. Yeah, because they're not just high-end driver designers. They're just building a speaker.
Right.
They don't really understand the nuances involved at our level. They don't.
Yeah.
And it's almost impossible to convey it to them because they don't work at that level.
Yeah.
They're not there. They don't supply, unless they supply drivers to big companies that make very high-end product. They have no idea the nuances.
Yeah, like generic Walmart brand A that's buying 1 million drivers or whatever. Like they're not going to care if it responds slightly differently for a headphone that's $40.
No.
Right.
It's just, oh, here's a driver. It works.
Yeah.
Let's throw it in the cheapest, crappiest chassis we can. Put a pad on it that might be considered a pad still, but really it's more just like a firm piece of fake leather.
Yeah,
and then just ship it.
Yeah, production variation is insignificant at that level.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Well, it also come down to something as simple as like just time of the year and like an unair conditioned warehouse that they're assembling stuff in. It could be like low humidity, high humidity.
Yeah.
That could change assemblies and tolerances and
or it's sitting in a warehouse at 150 degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah, all kinds of like
the
adhesives.
Just melting all the hell and getting gooey.
Yeah, because we know
it changes the properties.
in the winter, that's why we have to humidify everything in here, because in the winter, some adhesives, they just don't stick at like 10%.
Yeah, they require...
Yeah.
They literally just fall off.
Yeah, a lot of adhesives actually require humidity.
Yeah.
Which
to cure.
You wouldn't think
that.
You think, why would you need humidity for adhesives to work? Well, technically, you do, because that's what sets them up. That's how they work. That's the chemical process.
Yeah.
Part of it. But these are things that no one's taken into they take it into account, but they don't take into account the variability of what the final product will sound like.
Right.
No one's listening to these things.
Yeah.
They're just building you a driver to spec, or building somebody a driver to spec. And therein lies the variation, where it's like you could have every one of them sound. You get a batch one month, the next month it's completely different. You can't. It's hard to run. You couldn't run a company like ours off of something like that. That's why we build them in house.
And originally, I was talking to him, thinking like, well, why isn't there anybody in America who just makes runs of drivers for HiFi products? And then I realized, well, they wouldn't be able to sustain, because there's so much time going into research and development for all these drivers that go out in small batches. They wouldn't make any money on it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be doable.
I mean, even we ran into a problem where one of our suppliers, we were like, can you make this for us again? And they're like, we don't even make that. And they're like, can you send us a sample? It's like, yeah, you made this, but it was like 8 years ago. Remember?
Right.
And then they're like, oh, yeah, we don't even remember making this. It's like, can you make it, though? They're like, we don't know. It's like, if different people are working there now. So.
Right. Yeah, if you have something
custom.
Where it's sitting there for that long, that'd be bad.
Yeah. For a lot of that, it seems like there really isn't any other solution other than find a way to do it all in-house. And then that kind of, you end up in the high end.
That happens in the cable realm too. I mean, back in the day, we still sell cables,
right?
But you have custom conductors, then you have another company take the conductor material and make it into a cable. So they're putting insulation on the conductors, creating the topology, twisting, whatever the hell happens, overall jacket, printing, all that stuff is a process. And when you have custom conductors made and stuff, it takes. Usually, you're going to buy a shit ton of it. You can't buy a small quantity of a custom conductor, right? So let's say you got millions of feet of a custom conductor, right? You're going to have that for probably 10, 12 years, 15 years, depending on how quickly you go through it. You're going to have it for a long time. That's fine, because from that conductor, as long as you can store it properly, you can continue to make cables out of it, right? But over the long term, let's say now you run out of that conductor. Well, what do? Okay, you go to the company that originally made it, and they're like, well, like he said, 8, 10 years later, they're like, well, yeah, we made that, but now we're going to go through and respec it. We have a completely different computer system. Yeah. We don't have it. We don't know anything about it anymore. Different people work here. Now we got to do through the whole thing again. Give us a spec. Let's work through it. Let's make samples. And it's like the whole like you never did it before. The whole process starts over again. So it can be a problem to have too much inventory.
Yeah. Even on like our end. It was 10 years for us too, so like, you don't remember how you did that.
Well, that's the other problem.
I haven't done this in 10 years.
Where is the spec? Where I wrote it somewhere. I got pages of it somewhere, and you just to find it, and it's basically like starting over again. So there's most companies don't have inventory for that long, and it's just not usual. But in the high end, it can happen because you have minimum order quantities you have to deal with. So you're buying probably way more than you'll ever need in a reasonable amount of time. Yeah. And you can't predict the market either. You can't say whether you're going to use this in a couple of years or 10. So anyway, it's the same with headphones. Like you said, this guy could buy 50 million pieces, or let's say
If you had infinite money.
Oh yeah, 100,000 drivers, and then now you got China, the suppliers interested.
Yeah.
Okay, you're going to order at least 100,000 pieces. All right, let's work with you. Yeah. Let's figure this out. They'll spend the time to create a process. But if you're ordering thousands of pieces or whatever at a time, nobody's interested in dealing with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's straight up. There's you told me there's like actually like these forms you have to fill out before you contact all these companies, and they're like, how many a year are you going to be buying?
Yeah.
And if it's under a certain amount, they'll just be like, go somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, you don't get our contact information.
Right. And unfortunately, those are the companies that probably could make a consistent product.
Right.
You know, they're probably the best at it, which is why they need to see quantity. They also understand what it's going to take to make a consistent product.
That's the thing.
Which is why they're not going to make you 10 pieces or 100 pieces. Yeah. Because who's going to pay for that? Right. You know, I mean, there are some companies in the U.S. that we've worked with will just basically charge you upfront a fee, like when we had the foam inserts made for our Diana ear pads.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I don't remember the exact number, but it was almost $10,000 just for them to prototype it.
Yeah.
Right? Just for them to prove that they could make it, spend the time to figure out what jigs they need to create. Everything was temporary. Yeah. Right? But it was 10 grand or so just to come up with a little foam shape and say, yes, we can make it now. Now, how many do you need? And now we're going to charge you to make permanent jigs to make it in quantity.
And then after that, then you can start buying the actual pieces.
Yeah. And that ain't bad then.
Yeah.
Right.
Per piece ain't bad because you've already covered your upfront their upfront costs were covered by you. You paid them in advance to figure out how to make it.
But then you have to recoup all of that.
Well,
that's the problem.
And you better hope that you have a good idea before you even get to that point, right?
Well,
because you don't want to know what you want. No, we got to do it all over again.
Otherwise, the whole process starts over again. Yeah. So making a mistake is expensive.
Yeah.
Or changing your mind or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So you got to have a pretty good idea. You should be able to in-house prototype first, figure out where you need to be so that you can explain to the people making it exactly what you want, give them proper specifications, SolidWorks drawings, whatever the hell. It should all be already figured out. If you go to a company, a larger company, and say, I don't know what I want, they're going to hang up the phone.
What's this guy doing?
We don't know what you want either. We're not mind readers. We don't create part. That's what people might not understand is that other companies, other vendors, wherever they are in the world, they don't know what you want.
Right.
They don't.
And if you're wrong about what you want and you get something in and it's not right, then you multiply that expensive mistake by potentially every single part of the entire headphone.
Well, you're doubling down to make it right.
Right.
Well, yeah.
But it's like that expensive mistake could happen with any part. And a headphone is made of a lot of parts.
Yeah, more than you'd think.
Yeah, it's like, headband assembly, that could be 15 parts.
Right.
Or more, just for a headband. Yeah. Not yokes, not anything else, just a headband. It's a simple piece. No, that's a lot.
I mean, in the early days, we ran into this when we didn't have any machines. Remember, we get the parts for the machinist, and it'd be like, we want to change this, and then it would take a week.
We were paying a machinist. You pay him $100 an hour to make your parts.
Yeah. Right.
That's the number.
Yeah.
Maybe 90 something, but it was $100 an hour to make the parts.
I mean, the money was part of it, but the time was the bigger problem.
Yeah.
Because it'd be like, all right. Can you make this? He's like, yeah, I'll get to it.
Then you get the part. Then you're like, okay, now we got to change it again. Then make this.
Yeah.
Wait. Get the part. Yeah. And before you know it, it's like
we're not getting anywhere.
Your head against the wall.
That's another thing. You order samples of something from China, and it's like, okay, that'll be there in 60 days.
Yeah. When you can't do anything.
What are you going to do for 60 days?
Right. It's dead time.
Your project's on hold.
Yeah. Right. Because everything is designed around that part.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's this repeating process of difficulty.
And it's not only that, if you think about it, it's not just any one part, but when you're designing other parts, even if you do the other process in-house, if you are machining the frames and that, right, they have to fit to the variation of the part that's not being made by you. In other words, in specs, you can usually say plus or minus so many thou, but there's going to be variation that you might not be aware of. So if you got a 3-inch diameter speaker, is it 3.00 inches? Is it 3.1 inches? Can it vary between 2.9 and 3.1? What are you using to hold that? So now let's say you design and have a plastic molded part to hold that thing. Well, if the driver's 3.1 inches and the plastic's molded to 3, the driver doesn't fit.
Right.
So now what do? You got to have a whole new mold made. So you got to understand the variation in, if someone else is making the damn thing up any part, you've got to understand their tolerances, what they're capable of staying within, just to make a part to go with it, just a mating part. And this goes on and on and on, which is real. You know, I don't know how big corporations like, you know, can you imagine designing a car?
Yeah.
With
all
the
tolerance.
parts.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's got to be just mad.
It'd be a nightmare.
Yeah. I mean,
like they have so many teams for just like individual things, individual
buttons.
Pieces. Yeah.
That's all I work on is, you know,
Buttons.
heater buttons.
Yeah, or like whatever this box is that sits in the back of the trunk.
Yeah.
That controls like a relay or something like that. It could be a million things.
I mean, they obviously have teams and teams of thousands and
it's not
thousands
two
of
people,
engineers,
Right.
You know, and even people in between, probably going between the vendors and the engineers between the engineers and the vendor to make sure the parts that are, you know, I mean, it's just, an incoming's got to be QC'd. Oh my God.
Well, that's what I said. You pay for good tolerances, you know? And we contacted places and like, this is the tolerance we need to hit. And they're like, we can't even do it.
Yeah, they won't even make
It's
the
like,
part.
we don't want to make it because we will not be able to do it.
Yeah. I was watching a video recently about like what the core principles of like foundational of engineering are. And one of those, I didn't realize, it's what the acceptable tolerance is. That's like one of the core foundation principles of engineering is acceptable tolerance. For every single part you make or for any piece, you have to define what an acceptable tolerance is. Kind of going back to what you were saying. It's like, wow, I never thought about that, but I guess it's true because there's always going to be a range. No part, like no matter what you do, it'll never be perfect. Your tolerance could be really, really fine, but there's always going to be a window, no matter what. You know, you're not scraping an atom off the top to make something perfect.
Well, even with things that you think have set tolerances, like pick on something like a screw.
Yeah.
You know, you set the thread pitch, you set the material it's made out of, the finish, you know, and the length, the head style, whatever you want to be. You get all that, and now you find your screw. All right. Now you go to use that screw and you go to tighten it, and it's loose in the threading of the hole, that whatever it was you're threading it, or it's too tight.
Yeah.
It's really tight and it's binding.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, these guys know how to make screws. Yes, they know how to make screws, but again, they're within a certain tolerance. And your part, the other guy that made your part, the custom part, maybe you didn't spec the tolerance for that screw properly. You know?
Actually,
it's crazy, but it's that stupid stuff like that drive you nuts.
Yeah, I was learning about that recently because I was doing something with my measurement rig, and it has like this threading on it for a part, and I was trying to 3D print a replacement part for part of it, and I got the exact spec from them, and you know, used the tool in the modeling program to make the thread to that spec and all of that, and printed it out. Didn't fit. What's going on? It was because I didn't check the tolerance for shrinkage on the resin I used in the printer.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, well, it'll vary this much in shrinkage
And that's
when
hard. That would be
curing.
hard to do with that.
Yeah.
What you really do with something like that, you'd print it solid,
And then
drill the
and tap.
hole, then tap. Yeah, there's
Right.
no way to do it any other way.
Eventually, I managed to get it by like just sizing it up like, you know, 0.5%.
Right.
And then reprint it 0.5% and keep going until I got it right.
Yeah.
But it was like 4 or 5 prints before it was like, this is starting to fit right.
Now that's where you invest into a drill press.
Oh,
Yeah, that'd be the way to go. Yeah, but
You know?
the thing I missed though is like, okay, I have the right specs here and here and here, but it was that variation in the resin that I missed.
Well, yeah.
And it's always something little
that goes
like
on
that.
and on with
Oh,
everything.
yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
the thing. The more parts you have, every part has a tolerance. Then you get that tolerance stack up. And
Yep.
so then everything's a little off from each other. And so if you're trying to hold really tight tolerances, it's difficult
And
with
then
a
you
lot
have,
of parts.
Then you have temperature variations that different materials expand and contract with different temperatures.
Yep.
They expand differently
Right.
with different temperatures.
So the tolerances change.
Metals don't tend to expand and contract as much as
Right.
plastics. So if you're combining the two in an assembly, good luck.
Yeah, here it's a problem like in automobiles, right? If you have like a carbon tub and then you have like aluminum doors, it's a problem because you got to take it. The carbon doesn't expand and contract as much as the aluminum would. So the doors will just, if it gets too hot, the doors bind up and stuff.
Yeah.
So, and you don't want to have huge gaps, obviously. So,
And you
it's a
can't. There's
whole
nothing you can do. I mean, other than you got to build into the assembly. The way the parts are assembled, you have to build slack.
Yeah.
It physically has to be able. You have to let that fiberglass move.
Right.
Otherwise, it's gonna have a problem. You know.
Well, it's like $400 headphones that are made out of wood rings.
Yeah.
And
right.
everybody ends up with them cracking.
Oh,
They're like,
wood's-
why are these
wood's an
cracking in the
issue.
winter? You know, and stuff like that. It's
Yeah.
like, well, You know,
Yeah, they have certain ways to put wood floors down in homes
Yeah.
because it's the same problem. You need gaps.
Yeah.
You need this, and
Well,
because it expands a lot
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Floors.
with humidity.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, more
Well,
than you
yeah.
think.
Like even this floor in the winter, the gaps open up and you can see them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, when it's different the humidity
And
and
it's
wood
glued
shrinks.
to glued to concrete,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you
right.
know,
It don't care.
no.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of crazy, but all these things have to be considered, and usually you learn this with experience. So have at it.
yeah, right.
But
Yeah, you stack all of these problems up and then add on top of that you have no control over the tolerances of some of the things you're getting in. And it's like, ugh, that just seems like a nightmare.
yeah, it makes for a real
Well,
problem.
and it needs
So
to
I get
sound
why you
good in
guys
the
do
end,
it the way you
know?
do it. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the whole thing.
Yeah, no.
That needs to work.
Yeah.
But yeah, the ultimate example is designing stuff to go into space. It needs to be assembled here in like room temperature, but then needs to be in space in a vacuum at negative 200 or whatever.
Yeah,
you know?
you're only making like one of them.
You're making one.
Well, that's why, like, people, you've seen YouTube comments before. People are like, well, why don't you guys just slap your nice driver in a cheap Chinese plastic
Yeah, right.
headphone? It's
Yeah.
like, this is why.
Yeah, right.
You don't get it. I mean, it obviously it'd be awesome if everybody could have the best
Yeah,
headphone on
it
the
would be
planet
cool.
for cheap.
Yeah.
But, like, it's not that easy.
Well, I mean, we
No.
kind of did it. We had a 3D printed parts, and it doesn't sound like a Diana.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, when you
Yeah.
guys were doing a 3D printed one and then you changed it to an aluminum actual piece for production, and it was
Yeah.
like, is this the same headphone?
Yeah.
Is it the same driver?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so much varies when in the higher end of things, and I mean, it's kind of like everything, right? It would be the same as if we always use like wine as a common example of subjective things,
Yeah.
where here you're listening to the product, so if you can hear the difference, then there's a difference, and if that's the case, then you start to realize how many things make a difference.
Right.
And it would be the same with the manufacturing of a beverage or a food, where you take the same steak and give it to 10 different chefs and they taste 10 different ways. It's
Yeah.
the same freaking steak,
Right.
Mhm.
but none of them none of them taste the same in the end. And I mean,
Right.
it's just because of our subjective nature, where you can pick out the differences and the subtleties in it. We're just humanly capable of doing that.
Oh.
Yeah. And then the question comes down, well, what all matters? What all makes a difference when you're building something like that? Everything.
Yeah, totally.
Yep.
Literally everything.
Yeah. And so
So-
you're going to be finding that, especially with prototyping, you're going to be doing the same thing literally potentially hundreds of times
Yeah.
over and over again.
Yeah, I imagine.
It's madness, really.
Yeah.
So it depends on where you want it. How good do you really want it to be is where it
And
ends.
hopefully actually making progress. Because if you're like not getting anywhere and
Yeah.
doing things, oh man.
Well, that's insanity.
Yeah,
right?
It would drive me
Friday,
insane.
you go-
Well,
Yeah.
that's the definition of it, right?
Yeah,
like,
no. I would be banging my head against a wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Well, a
co-
lot of
it
times you
happens.
could do that.
You got to
yeah.
walk
Yeah.
away.
Yeah, if you
Come back.
Yeah, you can hit a dead end. You
Yeah.
can go on a tangent, and like branches on a tree, and then you fall off when the branch ends.
Oh,
Yeah. Like a special thing for engineers where you just have like a soft pillow framed on a wall.
Yeah.
Some text, hit your head here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, you need
So-
wood.
Yeah.
wood. Yeah.
Yeah.
It has to make like a
Oak.
special sound.
Well, oak gives you the best effect if you're going to hit
Hmm.
your head on something.
Oh,
I think.
okay.
Yeah, it should be hardwood.
This is it feels
Not
like this
pine.
comes from experience
Yeah,
of frustrations
yeah.
in manufacturing.
Yeah, like hitting your head on a 2x4, and it's nothing. It's kind of neat how it vibrates, and stuff. I've run into 2x4s by accident
Right.
in construction, right?
You're like, trust me, I've been
So
building
it's like, oh, that hurt. But
You've been building headphones long enough, you know what kind of wood you need to hit your head on to
Oh,
get the
yeah,
right
and I know the sound of it too, and I know I know how my head rings afterwards, right?
Yeah.
So you learn all that sounds, yeah. But oak is the really good stuff to hit.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, I remember. Yeah.
Maple's kind of more forgiving, but
Yeah.
oak would be really teach you not
Yeah.
to do that again.
Yeah. Keith was running into a problem with a part that he was trying to get the chamfers right, and they just weren't coming out right, and it was like a day of him just. And what it ended up working for him was he had to go hit a piece of stainless steel with a hammer for like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And that
The
helped.
Clarkson method.
That helped.
Yeah.
Yeah, just bring a hammer.
Yeah.
Right.
He's got hammers for that.
He's got hammers. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
All different kinds.
Different kinds.
Dead blow,
Yeah, yeah.
real ones.
I guess the question, not the question, but the topic I brought you guys today doesn't have a solution.
No.
But it's something that I feel like people in this world need to know more about, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah.
Well, you just see the finished product. That's the
Yeah,
thing. So you
exactly.
don't know what it took to get there.
Yeah.
Uphill both ways in the snow.
That's
yeah,
right.
pretty much.
yeah. But actually,
Yeah. No, it's a project.
Yeah.
And, I mean, especially if you don't have a small team, if you're not, it's different when you have, again, literally thousands of engineers all
Right.
working on the same thing together.
Wouldn't that be nice?
if you're making
right.
AirPods.
Yeah.
They'll figure it out pretty quick, you know, and I'm sure they still run through their difficulties. But yeah, when you're only dealing with companies that have 1, 2, a couple people, and and you're waiting for vendors to bring parts, like you said, you're waiting 60 days, 2 months, 3 months, you get the part in, and now it doesn't fit. It's like, okay, or it doesn't sound good.
Right.
Right. And what do? The whole thing starts over again. First, you got to determine where it went wrong. Right. Where did it go wrong? Why? What is my spec not telling the vendor that made this part?
Well, yeah, that's the most important thing. If you don't know what went wrong, well, then what do you do?
And if they don't know, then the real key is to find a different vendor.
Yeah.
It's time to move on. If you're working with someone that doesn't realize how to make the part the way you need it made, it's the wrong vendor for your company.
And there's probably a vendor out there that's like decent for all this.
Yeah.
Well,
Hard to find them, I imagine.
Yeah, there are like specifically low volume prototyping people that are good at that, but yeah, it's expensive.
Yeah.
But for finished products, I mean, you think about drivers, not a part.
Right.
It's a magnet
It's an
structure.
assembly.
Yeah. It's a stamped piece or something. You need a basket. You need the driver material. You need to form it somehow.
Yeah.
You need a coil of wire attached to a former. That has to be attached to the driver. These are all processes and steps that no one, only driver manufacturers, speaker driver manufacturers really know how to do. So, as soon as you change one of those up, let's say you use your own custom material for the cone, which most of us guys would want if you're going to make a custom driver, right? Say, okay, we've got the material. This is what we want to use. Now you give it to the company that makes everything, but now you're giving them a new material to work with.
Right.
Well, guess what? It doesn't work. It's not working with their setup processes. It's not assembling the same. The adhesives ain't holding to it. It ain't, nothing's working out. So now either they're going to take the time and figure it out and charge you for it, or you're screwed. They're going to say, most of them will throw their hands up in the air and go, you know what, we can't work with this material.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to take the time. So you're done.
Right.
So that driver, that material that you thought would be the cat's meow for your sound you're after is not workable with the vendor.
Yeah, well, and a lot of manufacturers, like, if they're just manufacturing molded injection parts or whatever, or something like that, like, they're not doing it as a passion project.
No.
They're doing it because time is money.
Yeah. Right.
That's just how it is.
They're not into it like us.
Yeah.
They have no idea.
They don't care what they're making.
Right.
They just want to make it and sell it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I'm assuming, like, for Apple, that's probably most of the battle is designing it to be made,
Yeah.
Like, we know we need to make millions of these. That's the hard part, right?
Yeah.
Right. How can we save like 5 cents per unit when we're making them?
Right. And be able to actually make them consistently.
Yeah.
A million times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're making stuff by hand, it's a little easier. But
well, it is a relationship between as a company, you build a relationship with yourself and your vendors.
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes the vendors are just supplying raw materials. It could be aluminum, it could be anything. And sometimes they're providing the whole damn thing.
Right.
And a lot of headphone manufacturers, they just have this stuff made over there, and it's just shipped in a box ready to go with a barcode on it.
Okay, China, what do you got for me?
Yeah, right. That's a whole different ball game there. But
not to rag on China specifically. A lot of things are made there. It can be made anywhere. You can get stuff that's made in, I don't know, the
India,
corner of
Thailand,
literally any part of the world and have the same problems.
Right.
It's just manufacturing as a whole happens to be that way.
Yeah, that's where most of the shit gets made. Speakers in general.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, even in the 2-channel world, in the speaker world, you got a lot of manufacturers that make their own drivers. There's some big ones up in Canada. I know they're good at that. And there's probably a few in the U.S., but not as much. But bottom line is that I mean, when you go to that level, you're pretty serious. When you go to the level of making your own driver, it's a pretty serious endeavor.
Yeah.
It's
that's a massive task.
Yeah, it's not. That's why most companies that build speakers tend to buy other people's drivers. A majority of, you think about it, buy other people's drivers. They may have them modify them.
Right.
That's why you end up with companies like Dayton and Eminence and Timpani and all those that just, they're almost household names in hi-fi and audio.
They make a lot of drivers.
Yeah. They supply it for everybody.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you're more of like a chef then. You're taking like ingredients off the shelf components and then putting them together in a way that you like.
You guys just happen to be like a farm to table restaurant.
Oh, farm to table.
Yeah,
that's true.
That's the way you look at it. Yeah.
Nice.
So, that's one way to look at it. Is right.
Yeah.
Farm
to table headphones.
You have total control over your destiny, so to speak. But but in the end, it's costly. I mean, it's expensive to do things the way we do it, and then that's why majority of companies don't. Yeah, and that's why majority of companies won't. They'll accept certain tolerances, and or just throw the bad ones out, and what's left is what gets shipped.
You could bin stuff if you could buy stuff at high enough volume. You just measure all of them or whatever.
Right. And
throw these out.
You're scrapping 30, 40, 50%.
It is what it is.
And it's built into the price.
Yeah.
That's the best you could do, unless you find a better vendor that can get you better tolerances.
Yeah.
Anyway, oh man, it's a lot of work talking about a lot of work.
I know.
Yeah. I know. I'm worn out already.
I know. Right.
Gosh, I need to take a break.
It has been
really.
a while. Yeah.
So it's been. Yeah, you're right. Now, as you do this, the good news is, like, we've been doing this a long time now, so we have experience in avoiding the pitfalls.
Right.
And there's a lot of them, and you'll just keep pounding your head against oak until you learn to avoid them. But bottom line is, there's a lot of pitfalls. And it's okay though. That's if this was easy, everyone would be doing it.
Right.
And it ain't. So there.
That's how it goes.
We used to get majority of that hard stuff out of the way. Already did all that.
I always think it's cool when new headphone manufacturers show up and they have product. You could see that. We see, I think we talked about this in a video way back, but you could see the mistake in their first products. You already know by looking at it, even if we just look at it, you can already see all the things we went through that they didn't even catch.
Yep.
Everything, the curvature of the headband, the materials, the way the driver's mounted, all the stuff. You're like, the cable, how it's made, how it's attached. It's like, you're just...
Like, failure point.
They're going to have a problem here. Yeah, they're going to have a problem here. They're going to have a problem here.
Well, I mean, same thing with us, though. You look back at it's like, oh, man, remember when we were doing this stupid? 10 years ago?
Well, I mean, you just didn't know. You learn from your mistakes. So.
Even in the few years I've been up in Buffalo, like, I've seen you guys do so many, like, iterations and changes and improvements on things.
Yeah. It's a constant ongoing thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's just for, ease of assembly or makes the procedure easier. Some of it's longevity.
Yeah.
Some of it's better sound.
Reducing weight or things like that.
Yeah, simple things. Yeah, or just, whatever. There's all kinds of reasons why manufacturers make running changes to product. And, but hopefully it's all for the good.
Right.
I mean, we certainly never try to cheapen anything, but a lot of companies, as they get bigger, they tend to go that way. How can there's a bean counter that gets involved, right?
Yeah.
An accountant. And all of a sudden so now people are listening to him. There was never a guy that was a bean counter. It was like, we make it, we sell it, we're good. Now the guys go, you're not making as much profit on this model,
Right.
And, why is that? And then next thing everyone trickles down, everyone's trying to figure out how to squeak more profit out of a product.
Or if we didn't do it this way, we could make more. But it's like, we do it that way because it's better that way.
Yeah, right. So now you're weighing it out, profit versus, quality or whatever it might be the trade-off.
Yep.
So, it happens a lot.
Never ending.
Yeah, it is.
Never-ending circle.
It's a project. But in the end, it's fun because look at all the cool toys we get to play with.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
We make our own toys.
Exactly.
It is nice.
Yeah. On that note,
are
we done?
I guess so.
Yeah,
that's all I could think of.
I hope that made sense.
Yeah.
I think it did.
I don't know.
I feel like that was a pretty productive conversation.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe people have questions about it.
Yeah.
Well, they can,
probably.
They can write it and ask us.
Yeah. Maybe that'll become a future episode. Maybe I'll swing back by and stop and we'll talk about
remember,
things.
we forgot, but we have an email address for that. If anyone has any ideas, it's totl@abyssheadphones.com.
That's
there you
right.
go.
We forgot about that.
They can just email that and it might become a video.
Top of the line, totl@abyssheadphones.com. Yeah. If you got any questions or if you have any comments or if you have a subject that you'd like us to talk about, we'll give it a try. And on that note, thumbs us up if you like this video. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. You have to subscribe because we're supposed to hit 20,000.
Oh,
It ain't working out. The internet's really slow in August.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
I'm feeling that, too.
Yeah, nobody's on the internet.
Everybody's riding bikes, listening to headphones.
Going on vacation.
Yeah.
I don't blame them. Take care, everyone. Thanks.